He- wow, that's she said a lot of words there, ladies, that maybe some of you may not be familiar with. She said a lot of names of of books and a lot of Hebrew words. So please, if you have questions, I want you to unmute right now and ask your questions. Anybody? Anybody?
Well, I don't have a question. That was just a lot. I have a lot of notes, and I'm going to have to
Yeah.
study this so much more because I feel like a lot of it maybe just went right over my understanding. I love the way she presents, and I understand the basic principle, but I feel like there's probably a lot I'm missing, and there's a lot of comparative scriptures that I think will require some study.
Absolutely. One of the things about Robin is that she is in her books. She is in all of the extra biblical material. She's in all of the art scroll books. A lot of the art scroll books look kind of like this. You'll see when she references art scroll books, they're going to have this kind of appearance here. And
Mhm.
what these are these are rabbinical um old old books that go back to to Rashi and Rambam and to and even further back, the real deep midrashes that was there. And she goes in not only into the scriptures, but then she goes into all of these other books, into the Zohar and into the studies that are sometimes so far over our heads that I mean it's really beautiful how she can pull out the Hebrew words and the definitions. So she's going to throw out some words out there that may not be familiar to you. Write them down the best way you can figure out how to spell them. Ask, what does this word mean? What is this book that she's talking about? For sure, there's a lot there. What my takeaway was of this is that that the house of David is being rebuilt in us. They're being rebuilt in us. And we're the ones that's rising up, and we're the ones that's going to be that rabbinical kingdom. Thoughts?
I just think it's really beautiful. Um, and I see a lot of I don't know what the word I want to use is. I don't want to say truth, it's all truth, but a lot of things that the Father has shown many of us since coming into this walk. I think a lot of what she shared aligns well. It pairs well with things that we see and feel, our bodies being the temple, the timeline, the menorah, seven being important, six, six being important. If this is the, you know, sixth day essentially, and we're preparing for the seventh day, we're preparing for the wedding feast. And we know that prior to that, these two sticks have to unite. And then we think about all of the people who are being called into this journey and are seeking truth and they want to walk in the way. And when she was talking about doing it like with your whole heart and just fully invested. It's interesting. I was actually at my mom's driving home the first part of this, and my mom and I talked about that. It's like when you really think about what the Father is seeking, He wants us to love Him with our whole heart, our whole body, our whole mind, our whole soul. And that means really dying to self and living for Him. Like that's the intention when you get up in the morning. It's what can I do to please the Father? And then I feel like that, she was talking about she did this over Sukkot, but I was thinking about the Torah portion this week and Abraham, and that, there were those 10 trials. And why did it take 10 trials? Why was it after 10 that God finally said, now I know you love me? Why didn't he feel that after the first time or the second time or the third time? But I think he's trying to extract something in us that even we don't know we're capable of in terms of how we love him. Always wanting to hold a little piece of ourselves back. So when she was talking about that, the fullness of that, us being willing to just fully um, invest, I guess maybe, or fully like just jump in and do it wholeheartedly. And that's what I think of when I think of David dancing. Like people, they thought he was drunk, they thought he was crazy, but it was his love for the Father that caused him to just act in such a way. And I want to be a fool for God like that,
Yeah. Yeah. We need to fall in love with him like we're his bride. I mean, we really do. We need to really fall in love with him like we're his bride, because the sukkah that he's building, and when you study the Hebraic wedding, you see that they get married underneath a sukkah, right? And they break this glass. And if God is preparing a sukkah for us, he's preparing us for our wedding day. He's preparing us to be a bride, an Ezra Kenegdo, a partner with him to rule the universe, to judge all of creation. That's a pretty big responsibility. So yeah, he's going to test Abraham more than once. He's going to test him 10 times. He's going to test his bride over and over and over and over again. Because when you're in a position of power and leadership, you don't have the freedom to make a mistake. You don't have the freedom to fail. And like take Queen Elizabeth, for instance. Do you think she has the freedom to even stumble down some stairs or getting onto an airplane or something like that? Yeah, I said that, sorry. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? So
I understand. Yep, I gotcha.
yeah, I just went political. Sorry, I'm not supposed to do that. Yeah, it's a pretty big calling. It's pretty big he really wants us to understand. And I do love the fact, Jen, that you pulled back in the whole Torah portion this week, and the 10 times that Abraham was tested and his 10 trials, because he needs to know that he knows that he knows that he knows that we are for him.
Well, and two, it's casting another vote, right? For like, this is really what I believe. No, this is really what I believe. I'm going to do another rep of this, and like, for sure. And I'll show you,
Yeah.
Well, it's easy to show faith in a trial once, but when you do have to do it over and over, it truly becomes a lifestyle. Right? Like you have to get up, and like you can love somebody for a minute or someone who comes to visit, but can you love them for a lifetime? And we can fake anything for a moment, but if we are put in situations where time and time again, we have to prove something, then it does truly become a lifestyle. And Crystal, if you could give me permission to go off on a slight little tangent. It is, but it isn't. I was thinking about when you were just talking right there about the bride getting ready. And I think a lot of us have been feeling that since Sukkot, because Sukkot brought a lot of challenges for people. And I was really going through some difficult things. And one night in prayer, the Father led me to Isaiah 54. And it says, "Oh, you afflicted one, tossed with storm and not comforted. See, I am setting your stones in antimony, and I shall lay your foundations with sapphires. And I shall make your battlements of rubies and your gates of crystal and all of your walls of precious stones." And then he says, this is the inheritance of the servants of Yah and their righteousness from me. And I really got stuck on that. And as we're preparing to be the bride, one of the things we know is that he refines us through fire. And when I was reading this, I had to look up, like, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, like antimony or antimony, I don't know how it's pronounced, but I'm like, what is this? Because he says he sets our stones in it. So what is it? Well, it's a foundational mineral that gives sturdiness. It gives us this ability to be sturdy. And so he takes these stones, sapphires is one thing that's the foundation, and that is royal beauty, typically in scripture. And then we see that he makes the battlements with rubies. And so I had to look up, like, what's a battlement? What is he talking about? And this battlement are these, like when you look at the top of a castle and you see these little windows at the top right that you can look out so that you can see the enemy, but yet you're protected behind this wall. And these rubies, if you think about what rubies are compared to, they're often compared to wisdom in scripture. So as I was praying on this, it's like, okay, the Father's saying that what he's trying to do when I go through these afflictions, so thinking of Abraham's 10 trials, when I go through these afflictions and I have these storms, maybe I don't feel comforted, but what he's trying to do is he is preparing me to be his bride. He is giving me a solid foundation that's going to give me royal beauty and it's going to give me wisdom. And those are the things that are going to prepare me for my inheritance as the bride. So I think all of that just goes with what she was saying tonight too. It all just feels like all of the pieces are just gently starting to weave together for greater understanding of who we are and what our true inheritance is.
That is the question for who we are. That is the question right there. That is the real revelation. I've been sitting in that for a while, for a while, who we are. We're told so much about what we can do and how we're supposed to act and what we're supposed to say or where we're supposed to be. But what he wants us to know is who we are. When he says that he's rebuilding the house of David, the sukkah of David, he's telling us, I'm reminding you of who you are. And I'm reminding you of who I created you to be. We're finding the who in who you are. What does it mean when you are a bride? What does that mean? Who is the bride? Who is the queen? Who is this person? How many times do we look in a mirror and we don't even really know who we are? How can we know who we are in him? Unless God is doing one of two things at any given moment in our life. He's revealing his character and he's building ours. Every situation, everything that Abraham went through, his exile from his family, his hunger in Canaan, the corruption that resulted in the abduction of Sarah, Hagar, all of these things, right down to the mountaintop experience with Isaac. God is doing two things. He's revealing his character and he's growing Abraham's. Because Abraham needed to know who he was, really who he was, the real who, past the flesh, past all of the things, past all of the hospitality, really who that is. My goal and my hope is that we as women, especially this coming year, that we are equipped with the knowledge of who we are. That's my desire. And when we rebuild our house, when he rebuilds his house of David, when he raises us up in this temple, we need to be that breastplate of rubies and sapphire and crystal. Because just studying the breastplate alone and the 12 stones reveals so much of God's character, and it explains so much of who we are. Just the breastplate alone. I mean, the fact that Moses sat on sapphire when he received the stone tablets on the top of Mount Sinai. I mean, we could go on that forever. That will be one I'll tell Robin to dig into, right? Because I'm sure she could run deep with that one. Who else? Anybody else have anything? Am I by myself?
I came in a little late,
There
but
you
I'm just really thankful for this because even just in the relationship I am in, and just building, getting to know each other, the call that Yah has on my life, on his life, and then just seeing how he's working those things together for his glory, and how we're to walk these things out, like just walking through and dealing with, like, say, insecurities from our past, and how these different situations are coming up. And it's so amazing just how the enemy is trying to come in and knock us off, but we're recognizing it. And it's like the Father's using these things, he's allowing them to happen. Because, like you said, he's wanting to strengthen us and build us and make us more like Messiah, and to be able to minister to those around us here now, and then to refine us and purify us for the kingdom. And it's just, it's so, like, I'm sitting here writing out things as you guys are talking, and it's like I was already thinking them, and then I'm like, okay, it's like the Spirit will give me things in my mind, and if I try to speak them out, it's like it just gets all messed up. But if I just sit and think first and let Him set my mind right, and then I can write it out, and it's like, oh, that makes total sense. But it's like in the midst of the trials, sometimes it's like, why are we going through this? But then when you sit back and just look at it from a distance, and he gives you that discernment, like, I'm purifying you, I'm helping you to see where and how I want you to work individually and then together. And yes, this is coming up, situation is happening, but I'm dealing with your insecurity, and I'm going to help you both to work better together. And kind of like what you said, with not holding back anything from the Father, like in a relationship, especially within marriage, you can't hold back things from each other, especially when you're going through things, because the enemy likes to keep things secret from each other. So then you're trying to guess at what's going on. And for me, the Father's like, no, you need to open your mouth. You have to tell him what's happening. And it's like he's given us this extra discernment with each other, where even if we are not talking, we can literally feel the pressure. We can feel like the heaviness. And it's like one of us will apologize to you, like, I'm sorry if I made you feel this way. And it's like, man, I can't hide anything from him. And it's not that we're trying to hide anything, it's just because of our past. It's like, are they going to accept this? Are they going to forgive me? Are they going to understand this? And it's like the Father's like, I brought you two together. You didn't choose each other. I chose you for each other. I brought you together, and you're going to work this out. And I'm not going to let this be in between you. So he's like, it's like that iron sharpening iron. It's like he's striking us against each other, but it's for his glory. And it's like we're recognizing it because we're both wanting to follow his ways fully. And it's scary. It's super scary, but it's so good and it's so freeing. It's like, man, I can be real. I can be myself. We both want each other to be who Yah created us to be fully, and not hold back, and seeing our strengths and our weaknesses, and allowing this Holy Spirit to show us how to work together. And it's like even the love that he's using, like it's his love in both of us. And it's like, wow, can it really be this good? And it's almost like this is too good to be true, but it's like, it's because it's him, it's not us. Like we could not do this on our own. But when we allow the Father to do the work, it's just you can't even explain it. And people will look and be like, well, have you thought about this, and what if this happens, and what if that happens? It's like, yeah, you're right, things could completely go terrible. But if we're in the Spirit and we're both wanting to be in the Spirit, and it's like with Abraham, even when he failed, because Yah had a plan, he wouldn't let him fail. He still was like, no, you're not going to fail. Like when he went to Egypt and he gave
right.
Sarah to the king, and he's like, he went to the king. What did he tell the king? He's like, this woman is that man's wife. Don't touch her, or I'm touching your whole, family. He's like,
Yeah.
but he told me that she was his. He's like, I don't care. Don't you touch her, or I'm gonna mess you up. And it was just like,
Mhm.
yeah, when he has a plan, he's like, no, I'm gonna let it go forth. And it's just like, wow, like he's so merciful to us. But when he has a plan, it's like, don't get in his way.
I want to be part of his plan, because even when I mess up, he still like twists it back around, because he's not going to let his plan fail. I want to be
Amen.
part of his plan. And the what you're talking about there is that getting to know each other. It comes with a vulnerability. It comes with a barrenness that is sometimes scary. But that's what he wants us to do with him, right? He wants us to know him. That means we need to bear all in front of him, and we need to just lay it all out there. And we need to present that vulnerability to him, that um that exposure, that trustworthiness. And when that is manifested in the world that we live in, it is better understood in the spiritual realm when we do it with him. Yeah, that's good stuff, Sarita. What an amazing testimony you have. It's so beautiful. I love to hear it when you talk. Well, guys, I want to say if there's anybody else, but we've already gone over. It's like Robin went long. We're going to go long. So I'm going to call an end to this right now. We're going to go ahead and stop the recording so that it doesn't go any longer.